Hello and welcome to Holistic Circle podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy. And I'm happy to have here with me the expert on many, many things. I'm looking forward, Scott Guerin. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Philip. Yeah, I always wonder about the expert thing, kind of puts a little pressure on.
You can handle it.
Okay. Okay,
For
all right.
the last couple of days, I've been waiting for this conversation, to be honest.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, me too.
It's for a lot of reasons, more than one. All right. But before we get jumping into all the different things that you do, because it's a very wide portfolio among the new books, and maybe you're working with podcasts and other things, you great knowledge about religion and the structures in which they're presenting themselves. And of course, your personal training as an angel, is that what I read correctly or something?
Yeah, I've progressed quite a bit, yes, in the last couple of years, yes, my connection with them, yes.
So I think there's going to be a juicy conversation, that's for sure. But please be so kind and just give a couple of minutes or a small introduction so the people who might not know you yet get to know you.
Sure. Well, I'm Scott Guerin. I live in New Jersey, USA, and I have started my journey into spirituality from a very young age. I grew up in a Lutheran church. That didn't really work for actually our whole family. After a while, it was just the church we were in were very stale and regimented, and so our whole family kind of left, and we got involved in the conservative Christian movement for about 8 years. And I liked it because it had some life to it, compared to the Lutheran church, and had all the answers. And like everything is bup, 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 bup. You do this, and I needed to know that, And then after a number of years, my life, still fell apart, even though I was doing everything. And then I began to get these nagging thoughts about that the unconditional love that was professing wasn't really unconditional. It was conditional, and I wanted to know more. And then my life kind of fell apart, even though I was doing everything right. And then I decided to start from zero and start looking into spirituality apart from organized religion. So a lot of science and a lot of just looking into other religions and this and that for 20 years, and then finally I kind of came to a spot, mainly through meditation. That was my main connection, was getting into meditation techniques. I went to a Vipassana meditation retreat like two times. That's a 12-day no talking thing, Buddhist meditation. And then that was going great. And then I still felt like I was missing something. I wanted something more. I got involved with Nicole Bigley in her podcast, A Psychic Story, which every week she goes over. She has a different guest on, energy healers, numerology, astrology, all kinds of people, Wiccans, and certainly angel communicators. And that opened my mind to want to learn how to connect with angels. And so I started doing that and introducing myself to my spirit team, which I believe we all have a spirit team of, angels, past loved ones, ETs, and other non-physical beings. And then Nicole and I ended up writing a book called Looking for Angels, which was kind of my story about how I got involved. And I do a religious, scientific, psychological review of angels. And then Nicole, she is a psychic herself, brings in a lot of how-to step by step. And so that really helped me quite a bit to feel confident and feel connected with my parents, a very important person in my life who passed in 2015. And so that kind of got me going. And then I had this thing in my head, like, you need to go to Egypt. And I'm like, well, I kind of always was interested in Egypt, but I wanted to go I felt a calling, like a spiritual pilgrimage to go. So last October, I went for a 14-day extensive trip to Egypt We had 3 archaeologists, and it was through the organization Gaia, which is very spiritual, scientific, religious. I really love that organization. But anyways, through them, so we kind of got the spiritual perspective. And then with that, Eric von Daniken was one of the tour guides. And as you may know, he was made famous by the Chariots of the Gods books and 30 some other books about that. So he was there. He's 90. And he let us know that all the time. I'm 90. But so we got an ET layer of our trip. He wasn't there the whole time, maybe 3 days. But I was always fascinated by ETs, and I wasn't like digging into looking at all the shows and stuff. But in any case, I felt that I needed a connection with that, and that I got through that trip. And from when I got back, from then to now, it's been exploding, with my connections with ETs, looking into how to connect with them, and learning a lot about them. And I feel, I humbly feel that part of what I'm doing here now in this life and the book that it's coming out is to help people get prepared for 2 big changes. One is understanding who we are, our divine nature, and also once we do that, then we'll find out and be able to connect with our galactic neighbors. So that's where I am now, and I hope that I can do that.
Well, I think people who've been taking notes, which I hope good listeners have a little notebook. They already was counting 12 different kind of podcast episodes just so far. But on a personal note, because I've been sitting here the whole week and having a lot of podcasts over and over, and I have to say this out loud one time. I'm so fascinated. You were the 4th or 5th guest this week who said, I did everything right in life, but I was still not happy. And each and every time I'm sitting here and thinking, well, so jealous because I could never say such a thing. Well, I don't think I haven't done anything right. But somehow I stayed quite happy.
From the beginning, you called it, nah, I'm not doing it.
I never had this feeling so far, but maybe I'm still, I got some miles left.
Wow. So is the background okay? I mean, the machine started up across the street.
I have such horrible ears. You could probably have a circus.
I don't hear them too much. They're chopping down 2 trees next door, which is wonderful.
I hear nothing.
Oh, perfect.
But
okay.
It's no surprise. I mean, you can have a tractor beside me while I'm sleeping. All right. So I don't know where to start. This is so much stuff that I would love to talk about. There's so many different areas and levels. But let's maybe go backward forwards. That's maybe the best in those cases when I don't know where to start. So let's start on the here and now and tell us about the work that you do with yourself. Maybe let's start there. What is this process that you engage, this spiritual journey, this communication? Is it clairvoyance? How would you describe what are you working in yourself, with yourself right now?
Yeah, what I have come to develop, and, we have to work at these things. We're so used to turning on the TV to listen to a video or we want somebody just telling us passively what to do. And it's not great news, but, we need to have a little discipline in our lives to dig and learn and change our behaviors and break out of the patterns that we've we've grown up with. And so it takes some effort. And so what I've been doing, as I mentioned, I really got the hook on meditation and quieting my mind. And I know, there's many different paths to do that. You don't have to have one thing, and it doesn't have to be a regimented. I tried that 9 o'clock every day and meditate. That doesn't work, at least for me. And so find out what works for you. And then a very insightful friend said, okay, you don't like a pattern, but you like the result. of meditation and getting into that. I said, yeah, absolutely. He says, go after that then. Like when you feel you need to do something and connect and be quiet, then do it then. You don't necessarily have to do it at 7 o'clock every day or something like that.
Sorry, did you feel like, do you have also when you're walking in the forest, is nature part of it, or you have your specific place in the house? Are there rituals you go through in preparation?
Yeah. I would say half of the time it's more just walking around. Like I put on I have this one favorite Buddhist chant that was done by, I think her name is Winters, and it's Om Ya. And it's just a chant going over and over again in background. Her voice is in some musical background. But wherever, if I'm on a bike ride, or if I'm walking the dog in the morning, I'll just put that on. Or sometimes I'll just put a inspiring video, about someone talking about, alternate consciousnesses or something like that, and kind of get into that. But what I really feel like when I'm writing, I really come to, this is my office here. And I put on some incense, and I have a candle, and I just more intentionally quiet and open to a connection with spirit, just to be with them or to get some work done on writing, or if I'm really, stuck in a certain place, like nowadays if I even catch a news article or a news thing on TV, I get angry, and so for me, meditation helps me reset my perspectives and on more eternal things and more direction on how to deal with the things that we are in this three-dimensional life, this temporary three-dimensional life. So that's kind of in general what I do. In my writing, I experience some automatic writing. I'd say at times, some people write books, automatic write books through spirit guides, their connections. I kind of do it on and off, and then the clairvoyance kind of kicks in where I'll get an idea that pops in like, yeah, okay, that's it. And then, I don't know if you've experienced this, it's the typical 3 to 4 a.m. time, where is a regular time that spirit reaches out to us. And then I'll get a thought, I may get one night, I'll get a thought like, oh, that's a great idea. And then another night I'll get like a thought, another thought, and then an outline. And then I'm starting to write in my head something. I'm like, oh no, because then now I got to get my phone out and start typing notes. And my wife wakes up and like, what's going on? I got to write this down. And then I'm tired the next day. That's why sometimes they're very valuable. But at the same time, I'm like, oh no, this is more than just a 1 or 2 thought type of transmission here.
I also cannot remember them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. But, and then the one thing that's been kind of weird to me within about maybe a year and a half, we on our podcast, on the Psychic Story podcast, we had a witch, and she was going over different divination tools, and she was all very, it's all very positive. That certainly our society and certainly religion has demonized anything Wiccan or anything non-organized religion, because I think it's a power grab. They don't want anybody infringing on their turf. But there's this one thing called scrying, which is, are you familiar with that? Scrying?
Explain it, please.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you. So what scrying is that you sit in a darkened room, sit in front of a mirror. It could be large mirror, small mirror, whatever it is, reflecting back to you. And then you have a candle nearby. My candle's almost gone now, but you have a candle flickering, and you near the vision that you have. And then you just kind of wait, you look into your own eyes and just quiet. And then you will get thoughts, and then you start writing, and you just start writing. And so that is what scrying is about. It's communication from spirit through you. And writing, I think it can come through in different ways, maybe just thoughts at times. but I just knew it as scrying, which is the writing component of it. So I started doing this, and I'm writing stuff, and I know it's not from my mind. I know it. And it's just writing very positive, very helpful, insightful thoughts. And then after about like 4 weeks, I was like, oh, I wonder who this is. And I was asking Nicole, and she goes, I don't know. Did you ask him? I go, that's the one thing. I can't ask any questions. It's all one way to me. And she said, well, you just have to put out the intention. So one day I was doing it, working, and then it just came out. We are the Palladians. And I'm like, I almost kind of, it freaked me out a little bit, like, oh, the Palladians, a stars galactic civilization in the star cluster Palladians, Pleiades. And so that's when it went on from there. Nothing changed from it on, other than I knew, and I asked somebody else that was kind of into the ET connection. He goes, absolutely. If you think that's what it is, if that's what they told you, then you got to just go with it. You own it. So that's what I've been doing, kind of an ongoing journal for the past year and a half or so. And so that's kind of like
just to point out that we in the last couple of days had a couple of Wicca people here on the podcast as well. Gardnerians and Hermetics and...
Oh, good. Yeah.
So we are part of the gang.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm in now, zone in the spirit, making sure the connection.
I know we can probably talk much longer about it, but can you make a quick preview before we come back to it? So this book is about this specific journey that you've been now publishing or coming out these days. What is this connected with?
I would say, and I hate to say it to sound like commercialized or whatever, but I was given the book. I was told to write this book, chapter by chapter. And it started with a Akashic record reading right before I went to Egypt. And the message came through, you're going to write this book. It's about awakening. It's about understanding our divine connection. It's about connection with extraterrestrials. It's going to be very galactic. And they said it's going to start in 2 weeks, it's going to start in 3 weeks, which was the day I went to go to Egypt. And so when I was in Egypt, the one giant thing is I felt very like I'd been there before. I felt very comfortable in Egypt, like I'm home. And then going through all the temples and reading about learning about the history and reading along the way and and to me, the pinnacle of the trip for me was going into the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid. And we had our group of 13 had a private 2-hour session, in there. We could do whatever we wanted. And I climbed into the sarcophagus in the King's Chamber and meditated. And I got astral projected out into space. And I met with my Palladian. This sounds so crazy, even when I'm saying this right now, but I'm putting it out there. I met with a group of beings, light beings. They kind of look like angels a little bit, and they were the Palladians that I had known. They said, we're so glad you're here. My parents were there, and I hope I can get through this. In my times when I was in the conservative Christian era, I was telling friends they were going to go to hell if they didn't believe in Jesus and all that, and I got mad at that whole thing and left. And I was kind of had a little standoffish relationship with Jesus, for decades after that, because I just kept associating the condemnation and the judgment and from him, but it wasn't really him. I kind of knew that, but I just couldn't separate that. And so I was in this kind of box floating up over Earth. Earth was about the size of a beach ball. And it was like a translucent type of box. And that's where I met the Palladians. My parents were there. And they just kind of were waving from the background like, we're here. And then the crowd parted. Like someone was coming my way. And the crowd parted. And this person that was Jesus walked to me. I was in the lotus position because that's how I was in the king's chamber. And he walked to me and he reached out his hand and he says, Scott, you don't have to kneel in front of me anymore. And he hugged me. And it was such, I was bawling my eyes out. And I had my shoes off because they say, take off your shoes and socks getting the sarcophagus. And so I was using my sock as a tissue. It was like, and I was trying to be quiet because I didn't want to mess up anybody else's thing, but it was so overwhelming. I felt so connected to everything. It was just unreal. And I've been working off of that ever since, not kind of living that ever since I got back. And the book has been coming out chapter after chapter. And so, so that's kind of where that is right now.
So it's kind of light reading.
Well, yeah, I'm keeping it short. And so that's the thing, I want to keep it short chapters and directions. It's almost like a primer. You want to know about, our divine connection. Here's these things to do. You want to know about the dimensions. I have a whole thing, 2 chapters on that we are multi-dimensional people. And I'll get into a couple different models of dimensionality. And then I have experiential components to that, how to experience the different dimensions, how to experience oneness with God's source, how to experience and connect with extraterrestrials. That's
just to get this right, is this book more like a story, your story with advice to others, or is it a training program, or is it a meditational guideline, like meditation in the old meaning of the word, deliberations? How would you place this book?
Yeah, I would say it's a guidebook. Like you're in the woods and you want to find out where the river is, or where the road is, or where home is. So it's very much that. I don't have the other books I've written. I have outlined my personal journey, what I just explained here. But this is more. I have one book on, one chapter on how do we know what we know? Because that's a big question. You talk about religion and what we've learned about God, source, and ETs. How do we know these things? I bring up various ways we know anything through authoritarian type of thing. A teacher tells us, tenacity, scientific explanations, and research, and then a priori. That's the model I use. Those 4 areas, and of course, the world, it generally follows the scientific experimentation as a way to know things. And that is pretty good. However, as you might know, that means you have to observe something basically in a laboratory. So anything non-physical is kind of out of that. And then a priori is anything else. It's the intuition. It's I expand on it saying it's the spiritual connections. It's the channeling. It's the inspiration. And that's where we've gotten all our religions from. At some point in time, some human being received information and they wrote the Quran. They wrote the Old Testament, all the New Testament books, etc. And what I'm saying is that we have to open our minds to other channeling sources in order to learn and go to the next step in our human development stage. And that is unity consciousness. And once that happens, then we'll connect with our galactic friends and family.
And to which end? Why would the universe bother with us? What do you think is here the purpose? What is the deeper benefit? Is it just that's what they do? I mean, we are those Galactians, and that's what we do, or what's the means to the end?
I think and that was I didn't mention this coming in, but I have my doctorate. I have 2 master's degrees and a doctorate in in psychology, focusing on human development with a kind of subsection on spiritual development. And in general, in human development terms, a lot of the foundational pillars, the psychologists that were involved in setting the platform of psychology, like Maslow and Bandura, had proposed that humans in general want to go up. Maslow's triangle of self-actualization. We all have an internal drive to move on, to go forward, to reach out. And the model that I like the most of human development is a systems theory, which means that we always are expanding our awareness. When we're a little baby, we have us and our primary caregiver, and then we know there's more than one, and then we know that there's a neighbor and a church and a work. And so now there's a natural inclination for us to connect.
Natural expansion is basically embedded within the matrix, and that has to be served, and that's it.
Yes, absolutely. And as I go over in the history of our galactic neighborhood, there really hasn't been a pure human being. We humanoids on this planet are a result of about 11 different galactic civilizations. The first main one that most beings come from are the Lyrans, and then they kind of dispersed throughout the universe. And then there are different subgroups of that, the Palladians, the Octarians, and stuff. So, and then at some point in time, over millions, even billions of years, came to Earth and cross-pollinated, with our DNA, and we have that in us. So that's part of our heritage. It has many different aspects of other galactic civilizations in us. So we're not like us, them. We're all part of a family.
Would you say, because when we look at history, there was this time where Jesus Christ was there, and Moses and Buddha, and everything happened, and somehow like in a quite tense time span where like so much moved forward. Do you think we're coming closer to another big movement? Does it feel like to you that we are coming closer to a time where again we're going to see some speeding up of this conscious level?
Yes, and that's a big thrust of the book, is this movement of unity into unity consciousness. And it's getting to be more popular, but I like the concept of the word, where we understand that we are a part of each other, and we are a part of God's source. And so I've been tracking my own life, moving away from organized religion into spirituality and digging deep into that. Empirically, we have numbers on that. We have people not associated with an organized religion. We have people seeing themselves as more spiritual than religious. We have an increase in psychic services. And the biggest thing that's going to change our Earth is that more and more people are meditating. And when we meditate, we raise our vibration. And when we raise our vibration, we move away from polarity and us, them, me, you, to more oneness. And that is happening. Another front is the astrological front, at least in the next 20 years. If you believe in astrology, which I kind of do, and I kind of look at it, with a cautious eye, to it. But the big thing that all the astrologers are talking about now is, Pluto moving into Aquarius for the next 20 years. And like you say, all right, so what? Well, that means a lot of change, a lot of significant change in society. Okay, fine, so what? You look back at the times when Pluto entered Aquarius, and you have the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Great Awakening, the Protestant Reformation. You have these things, and we're in that now. Obviously, you look at the news, and there's incredible amounts of turmoil and major things being changed on the societal level. Another aspect. Go ahead.
Good. You told me I will change my stock portfolio to more media companies.
Yes. Yeah, don't run out and buy gold. It's interesting to say, like, what do you do? So the best thing is, I personally think, is reduce your debt and expenses and diversify, your portfolio. But the
I believe in spend it all.
You never know how long it'll last. I kind of like that idea. I don't know if my wife will go along with it, but I'll run it by her.
My wife does.
Oh boy. Oh geez, you guys are. In this way, you can say you're helping the economy in these final hours. You might even help it from default. But the other big thing that I learned about was the solar cycles. And so as the precession, the wobbling of the Earth, you take a line from the South Pole to North Pole and put it out into space, and it goes in a circle. And those are in the ancient Hindu religions and traditions. Yes. These are yugas. Popular. So we're coming out of the Kali Yuga, which every source I've said says it's turmoil. It's and some people say it's the last gasp of, evil, of deceptiveness, of anger.
A friend of mine is literally selling his house and changing the location because of the Kali Yuga. He's like, I'm going to go somewhere remote, my friend.
But here's the good news and the bad news. The good news is that moving out of the Kali Yuga, so that means we're halfway through the cycle. And Lisa Royal Holt says in her book, I think it might be Preparing for Contact, or it might be the Golden Lake. She talks that she got, she channels Satya, a Palladian female, fifth dimension, and they described it as the seasons, and that the first two Kali Yugas were fall, winter, and now at the end of the winter was a Kali Yuga, and now we're moving into spring. So we've got 14,000 years of positivity, of abundance, of oneness, of cooperation that we're moving into. But we've got to get through this tough time of tumultuous rehabilitation and rebuilding. And so, that's when the new earth comes. Eckhart Tolle talks about the new earth, and some of the scriptures talk about, and that's all great, except we've got to go from here to there. And I don't know how long that's going to be, but it's not going to be great. But in a sense, maybe things have to be torn down before they get built up again, before we'll get it.
But nothing you and me will see in our lifetime. So
I don't know. I mean, I practically don't know how that's going to work, but I hear the word imminent, but, imminent in a 14,000 year span.
I hear a lot. I hear a lot that people think that climate change is going to progress, and that's going to be the key transformation factor. Because if human race is under such enormous pressure by a massive deterioration of climate possibilities, that will be the key element where we either take the challenge by growing up our consciousness and build a better or more connected world, or simply drown. So that is one of the theories I've heard that make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that humans will only gather together in times of crisis, and that maybe that's what it has to take. Maybe other species, other planets can think ahead and say, yeah, not us. No, we got to go to almost the brink of extinction. I hope not, but it could. But I can see that might be the only way out.
It doesn't look good for us.
Yeah.
All right.
So what do we do, though? What do we do? We keep grounded.
Exactly. What do we do?
Yeah.
And this is maybe where we come to the next chapter, if that's okay with you, from a little bit different angles. I think we should keep it positive and don't look on the negative. And we should look exactly what you said. What do we do and how we're going to do it? And I'm interested by the concept of organized religion, versus personal spiritual growth, maybe new forms, hybrids, and stuff like that. So let's look this whole thing a bit technical, right? And let's forget all the bad things within organized religion, and let's just skip it today.
Because there are a lot of good things about it, and I say that as often as I can.
And everybody who's listening knows the bad stuff. I mean, I guess it's easy to pick on religion, but look at the positive elements. So let me just give me 2 minutes here to bring the ground, and then I would love to have your wisdom. So just give people the idea. Organized religion, The perk is that someone figure out the way, that's the way to the light. And if you follow it to the T, you have a high probability that you will be taken to some element of light. I think this is more or less what we can agree on. Versus your personal individual search, where you might have an idea that there is a light somewhere, but you're forced to basically look here, open that, look there. You have no guarantee with it. You have no structure with it. And it's basically up to your own abilities and possibilities. And maybe you find teachers on the way, maybe not, to ultimately, hopefully, maybe find the light, maybe not. So I think this is the basic theoretical approach to organize versus personal search. If you agree with that somehow, be great.
Yeah. They all religions teach oneness, teach love, teach unity. And then you just have just like anything, the interpretation of the books and how people kind of mess it up. But at the core of, I would say, virtual all religions, certainly the main religions, is unity with God, that, it's there.
Absolutely. But it's just become unpopular, the devoting to a certain way, having priests mark this is the road, don't go left, don't go right. This is the road, you have to follow the rules, you have to, these limitations seem to be less and less popular.
Yeah.
That's not going to good or bad, because I'm every day getting more positive towards it, surprisingly, as an agnostic. But nevertheless, I more and more see the virtue in it. But let's just look at this and see, do you imagine a moment where we can bring these things together, a free organized or hippie organized? I don't know. Is there a middle ground that we can find?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the Unitarian Church, we got married in, the Unitarian Church, doesn't have a statement of faith. It doesn't have it's very loose in that we're all connected. We're all here to, reach for God, and connect with Him or connect with it. It's very loose in that. And I kind of like that, but they do have things they do and little traditions here and there. I think it's on how the individual parish or church and the leader of that, the priest or the pastor, how they teach. And they center on the love and the unity and the oneness in their teachings, and do the people that go to that church, So I think it can happen very much so. And so people can have this, stay close to the traditions that they learned and loved so long, and still gain that, the benefit of that. But you have to focus on the light, I think.
Because if I translate this into society, we see exactly these two models running dead. The one where you're basically in the authoritarian structure and you have to follow rules and nobody wants this anymore, or like the majority don't want it anymore. But when you have this enormous individual, narcissistic, self-focused societies, then, our planet is going to run dead, because if you don't, have a community and care for them and then share them and so forth, it's just not how we humans function. I mean, we need to love and encourage each other. So I see the same problem that we see in religious or spiritual movements. I see them on society level. So I think this question's going to become quite important, how we technically bring us forward.
Yeah. And the idea of unity consciousness, a key part of that is that we can't fully feel and experience oneness with other humans or even God until we feel unity within ourselves. And if you're familiar with Carl Jung's work, shadow work, we all have that, and that's just his tagline on it. But basically, the work for unity and love and oneness starts with us, meaning that you got to look at yourself. I've got to look at myself, and all the things that I find unacceptable, traits or thoughts or whatever it may be, you've got to look at them straight in the eye and not necessarily force them to go away, but just accept them as part of yourself. And when you do that, you truly are able to reach out to others and feel that presence. That's a big component that I saw actually between unity and oneness, and then also the ETs, connection with the ETs, deal with the same thing because they can see all of us all at the same time, our conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. And that's what we're dealing with here. The shadow work is our subconscious, unwanted thoughts and desires that we want to deal with, or that we haven't been dealing with, that we need to. They come out in dreams, they come out in activities, they come out in illness. And so doing some shadow work, and there's great websites out there to look into that. But that can be a biggest thing, because once you are unified within yourself and self-accept yourself, you are much more able to do that with your neighbor.
So basically, you think we just have to do the hard work, read things like your book and other inspirational work. We just have to do the work, and there's no shortcut to this.
Yeah, the first step is your inner work. That is it, no matter how you do it. There's lots of resources out there. But, and just put that intention out, like, please help me with my shadow work. Help me with, the parts of myself that I don't like. And if you put that intention, that prayer out, and trust that you'll be led. You'll get a invitation to talk to somebody. You'll get a book may come to mind. You may bump into somebody that talks about it. So that really is the core of the human existence that prevents us from being unified. One in Dolores Cannon's work, and mainly her one book, The Custodians, she puts people in hypnosis, in a deep state of hypnosis, and then was able to contact and talk with ETs. And the one conversation that stood out to me was this one ET was saying, like, why, we don't understand why you want to harm another person and not support them. We don't understand that. We want to understand. That was their session, is that they just couldn't figure out why someone would want to hurt someone. When we turn on the TV and see it in the news, in the movies, on the TV shows, everybody's killing everybody, and they just don't get it. And so it shows how different we are from them.
I'm not extraterrestrial, but I almost had the same question like a day ago, just asking, looking at Bible and Jesus and original sin and thinking that stuff was written 2,000 years ago. It's just 10 points. And we still struggle to make it happen.
Yes.
So it's starting to weigh on me, thinking, are we that slow kind of learners, or what is preventing us? What is between us? And 2,000 years is a damn long learning curve.
We still don't get it. It's actually getting worse. And that's what I kind of one hope is maybe there is something to the solar cycles, and maybe we are coming out of this. So the environment, the energy, the vibrations are going to be changing. So people will say enough's enough with this, and they'll get it. Maybe because more people are meditating and our vibrations are going to come away, and people will say, like, I'm not interested in that anymore. I don't care about what you're so angry about. That's my hope.
I have to ask you the last chapter, that we didn't prepare for it, but it's just presenting itself more or less to this conversation, because you talked about the spirits and Jesus and extraterrestrials and aliens and all of this good and positive influence. Well, we didn't prepare for it, but what would you see about darkness? Because if we had 2,000 years to learn the 10 Commandments, we didn't. So there's so much tearing us away from the light. Do you think it's happening within us as a human condition, or do you also feel that there is a certain amount of darkness that's also forcing us to lose the path from time to time? Do you have any experience with those kind of beings?
I think that humanity on Earth right now has to run its course. It might be near self-extinction. It might be that. It might be the awakening process. Like I'm saying, the solar cycles are astrological, and people meditating, just rising up it may be our intrinsic nature to expand to higher ground. And then we'll realize that we're spending more money hating others and building walls and sending missiles and that it works out better for us if we all get along. I don't know. I kind of think we have to resolve it, or we will extinguish ourselves as a species on this planet. And it's up to us. Some people are like, oh, ETs, when are they going to come? How can they help us? Like, no, the ETs are not going to help us. They're actually waiting for us to get over what we're doing to ourselves before they get more fuller contact.
They're helping us through you and others.
Well, yes, right. Yeah, I'm thinking of like the what people call the first contact, which is the overt, we're here, we're ready to do commerce, resource.
But you do first contact. Is it not essentially? You have the communication, you're doing it.
Yes, many people do.
And many people have. So
yeah,
I don't see much of a difference. For you, it's real. So you had the first contact.
Yes, and so what the idea of the quote unquote first contact concept is when they come to the heads of the governments and like big ships come down and they're like, okay, we're ready to exchange knowledge. And people have even said that's already happening now, but more on a global.
But how do we know that they all can travel or want to travel? Maybe they're exactly that they communicate through telepathy or those kind of spheres. How are we limiting ourselves so much with this first contact concept? I understand the concept, but for me, still a person like you who said I have this conversation, for me, this is first contact in my interpretation.
Oh, I see.
I get the official.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. So it's happening. It's becoming more and more evident, and information is getting out, and that's all part of the process. And the biggest thing I've been told, is that you have to dispel the fear, because the fear of anything different, our first reaction as humans is it's defensive, and they must be bad, type of thing. Anything, any no idea. And in my book, I spell out and I have a connection with Copernicus, and for his entire life, he knew that the solar system was not revolving around the Earth. He knew that. And on his deathbed, he wrote the book about it. It was immediately put on the forbidden to read list by the scientific community at the time, the Catholic Church. For 219 years, it was forbidden to be read. And because people, no, it's not. And so people accept change. Humanity accepts change very slowly and in stages. And usually, as I think George Bernard Shaw said, all truth begins as blasphemy. So we have to set up initial ideas of contact with ETs very slowly. It's going to take some time. And we have to do the inner work so that we are not fearful of the new things that are coming.
So the last question is, do you see the possibility that maybe one day you will have a session and a pen and paper in the hand, that you will have this first context, how I decide to call it now, and you might get a drawing of a technical machine or some kind of invention that the world cannot even fathom at this moment, but once the science or some mathematic formula that we not even started thinking about? Or you think that that's not within because so far they seem to care is our spiritual development, our conscious development. Maybe for good reason they don't want to give us some new technology. Maybe you don't trust us to use the technology in an appropriate manner. But do you think it's in the realm of possibility that one day you will just come with a piece of paper and say, this is the message I got. It's a mathematic formula. I'm no mathematician. I don't know what it's good for, but it's divine. Can please somebody have a look?
Yeah. I don't know if that'll happen to me, other than like preparing the message and putting it out there in my books and my talking. But it's happened all along. I mean, Einstein always had these spiritual nuances to his, where he got his information from. Nikola Tesla, same thing. He said he got a flash. He got a flash in his mind of the alternating of the electric motor. He had a picture of his mind, and then he told his people to build it. He didn't even know what it was. There's a wonderful movie called The Man Who Knew Infinity. And it was about a Hindu mathematician that received these answers to extremely complex mathematical problems. He knew the answers, but he didn't know. And so he went all the way up and approached Oxford in England. And they said, these are genius. Where'd you get them from? He said, I got them from, it was like a divine priestess or some spiritual being gave, and he said that. And then they said, well, fine, but you got to work out the proofs. And so it took him a few years to work out the proofs to how he got there or how it could be getting there. But those types of inspirations have been happening all along throughout human history. So for me, I think the only thing I have to offer is my books and in talking on podcasts and shows. And I kind of think it's like, I'm throwing a rock, into a lake, and the ripples go out, and then of understanding, and then other people are throwing in their rocks, and so I'm just all part of the process. And that's kind of how I see it. But I think I much feel guided by this, by what I'm doing right now. And like, I don't know what else I could do if I don't have this to do. I don't know what I would do. But yeah, so that's what I feel. My brother said, he's very much against, he's a conservative Christian. Anything in this area is not really into his interest. But he says, it sounds like you're a prophet. I'm like, well, I don't think I'm a prophet. Unless you put me in thousands of prophets that are writing books and doing that, then I'll take that. But I'm not like a prophet.
We're not used to prophets anymore, right? It's
no.
It's an odd concept. It just feels like out of time. But
yes,
it's a nice title. You may reprint your business cards.
Oh,
Go for it.
Oh, boy. Talk about you said an expert, and I didn't like that. A prophet, I don't even want to know that.
If you ever come again to this podcast, I'll be introducing you as prophet.
Oh, my gosh.
Expert prophet.
Oh, geez. Oh, I'll just have to stay in my basement for the rest of my life.
Scott, it was a lovely conversation. We touched a lot of things, many unexpected turns. And we tried from different angles, but it is an interesting time we're living in, and I guess you are waiting for the new awakening. I am waiting for the new awakening. Will we see it? Will we not see it? Do we want to see it? I don't know. And then, yes, I do. So thank you so much for being here, and let us dream together for a better and more connected and more enlightened tomorrow.
Great. Well, thank you for having me, and I'll be happy to come back anytime.
Thank you.